KTLA the other day, yesterday, with my friend Tappa Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, "Who do you want to run the president?" I mentioned, "I think you'd be good at the job." Not this year, we know. I know. But he said, "I don't think he can win. I don't think he can win. He's too progressive, coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state." I disagree, but now this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you.
Bill Maher didn't hold back as he exposed the turmoil Gavin Newsom has brought to California Live on national television. On Real Time, Maher confronted the governor head-on about the mounting challenges in his state: skyrocketing migration, high taxes, escalating violence, and a homelessness crisis spiraling out of control. He even coaxed Newsom into admitting something far more shocking: that the Democratic Party itself is showing signs of fracture. This wasn't delivered as a punchline. The audience sat stunned, and social media erupted with debate. But Maher's focus on Newsom wasn't random. It sparked a nationwide conversation about California's struggles. Once hailed as a progressive dream, the state now faces a reputation for being prohibitively expensive, disorganized, and increasingly inhospitable to the middle class. Even with billions poured into housing programs that failed to deliver, the number of unhoused residents under Newsom's watch has surged to roughly 180,000, the highest in the country, casting a stark light on the state's growing crisis.
Have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership?
Major cities like Oakland, San Francisco, and Los Angeles have become symbols of disorder. Big companies, including Hewlett-Packard, Tesla, and Oracle, have relocated to Nevada and Texas, and families have followed suit. Even national retailers like Walgreens and Target have had to close stores or secure merchandise behind glass due to rising crime, particularly theft. California's tax system, with the highest top marginal income rate in the nation at 13.3%, has frustrated even its liberal residents. Maher, a longtime Los Angeles local, has consistently mocked the absurdity of paying steep taxes while navigating streets filled with encampments and crumbling infrastructure. For him, this wasn't news. He had been signaling for months that the state's progressive programs were slipping from visionary to unrealistic. In response, Newsom stepped into the spotlight. He highlighted California's innovation, GDP growth, and environmental leadership as proof that the blue state model still works, attempting to counter the growing narrative of decline.
I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we talked about, and this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So you think that's silly? You think that's a silly thing? That you see too much government there.
That's an interesting one, because the department stores came to us supporting that, and they're the ones making a case for that. They're making us. They're already moving in that direction.
You wanted to make a law about them?
Well, they've supported the legislation. It wasn't legislation that was enacted, that was initiated from my office, but it was legislation that came up with interesting support.
Maher pushed back, channeling a growing frustration even among liberals, speaking truth to power without any Republican challengers in the room. One of Hollywood's most notorious truth tellers turned his sharp critique inward, and commentators didn't call it a debate, they called it a reckoning. The tension was immediate as Maher leaned forward. "You're running the state, everyone is leaving," he said bluntly, landing the words like a punch. Newsom tried to respond, arguing that conservative media exaggerates migration and highlighting California's innovation and job growth, but Maher interrupted. "Gavin, this isn't Fox News. I'm talking about my neighbors and friends. They're fed up with paying sky-high costs to live in chaos." The focus shifted from policy to reality as Maher confronted the most visible crisis: homelessness. He spoke of the tents along Beverly Boulevard, the smell and the unease people feel walking the streets at night. Newsom framed it as a story of compassion and long-term change, but Maher refused to relent. "You've been in office for years," he said, "and it's worse. The audience murmured in shocked agreement rather than offering partisan applause as Maher turned to taxes. He didn't shout, he dismantled the argument calmly but forcefully. "You're bleeding the middle class," he said, pointing to California's soaring cost of living. In Los Angeles, earning $80,000 barely covers rent, and residents trade potholes and crime for being taxed as if they were wealthy. Newsom responded with familiar refrains about equitable initiatives, infrastructure, and reinvestment. But Maher's expression said it all tired, disbelieving, and deeply invested in the state he loved. "When people can't live with dignity, how can you brag about GDP?" he challenged. "You talk about compassion, but we can't even drive to work without seeing despair on every block." The statement struck a chord because it captured the moral exhaustion felt by many Californians, where ideology has faded and survival, security, and the ability to stay in one's home are paramount. Against the backdrop of staggering population loss, over 500,000 people leaving between 2022 and 2023, Newsom's claims that the state's main problems were being addressed felt hollow. Maher's final words on taxation landed hard, leaving a lasting impression.
Fear, the horror, the hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me, let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn, but I care about my community, I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up, they need to stop. And we need to push back, and I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is...
"That's a tax base walking away," Maher noted each time another resident left, pointing out how social programs shrink as a result and tax cuts fail to uphold progressive ideals. The critique was precise and unflinching. In response, Newsom highlighted California's achievements in social policy, green energy, and clean technology. Maher whispered, "I love all that," nodding in appreciation. "I adore this state. But who are you leading when the lights go out and everyone has moved to Austin?" The room fell silent, not a gotcha, just an undeniable truth. Even some of Newsom's online supporters later admitted that Maher's candid observations resonated deeply, kept quietly to themselves. In that moment, Maher became the voice of the disillusioned Californian, a liberal who still values progress without sacrificing competence. This wasn't mere political theater. It was a public reckoning. From one of California's most prominent figures to its highest-ranking official, live and unfiltered, Maher confronted failure. Newsom, relying on his composure under pressure, straightened, projected confidence, and began assembling his familiar talking points.
He come out and apologize. If you want to go on Twitter, Rob, and just go to the apology to a video that he came out eventually. This is, I think, 5 days later. On day one, I asked him, I said, "Are you going to come out and do this?" Watch how he's finally wanting to have his people be responsible. Go ahead, Rob.
Incite violence. I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account.
Okay.
That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will...
Newsom highlighted a state leading the nation with booming IT industries and the lowest unemployment rate in years, delivering a speech with all the polish and cadence of a political advertisement, untouchable, confident, proud. But Maher didn't let the momentum slow. He had seen this performance before. Newsom's defense rested on 2 points: that California's economic scale is underestimated by critics, and that its challenges are signs of success. He cited investments in renewable energy, diversity, GDP growth, and venture capital. Maher responded dryly, "That sounds fantastic, but reality matters more to people than GDP." The audience whispered and giggled, sensing the jab's truth. The governor smiled but looked unsettled, searching for a retort that never landed. Then came the decisive moment. Newsom framed California as a model for the nation, citing inclusivity, social justice reforms, and climate leadership. Maher cut through it sharply. "If you can't even save San Francisco, you can't claim to be saving the world." The audience erupted in a mix of tentative applause, shock, and agreement. Maher wasn't coming from the right. He was a progressive insider, calling out hypocrisy from within. Newsom tried again, insisting California's struggles were typical of a progressive state. But Maher had already shifted the conversation to undeniable reality.
President, I mentioned, I think he'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagree, but this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but doesn't think you.
Newsom declared, "No one else has the guts to take on the big tasks we're tackling." But Maher's tightening expression betrayed skepticism. "You've had countless commissions, billions in funding and time. Where's the outcome?" The camera caught Newsom blinking a brief moment where defense replaced confidence. Maher delivered the knockout. "You call it bold leadership," he said, leaning forward. "I call it mismanagement with good PR." The studio gasped. Every Californian familiar with dysfunction, from DMV lines to crumbling highways, immediately understood. Newsom tried humor, joking that Maher sounded like Sean Hannity, but Maher shot back with a grin. "No, Sean Hannity supports your death. This is where I stand." The applause was louder this time, not for Maher's politics, but for his honesty. By now, the power dynamics had shifted completely. Maher was no longer simply interviewing a governor, he was cross-examining him. Newsom's assertions of prosperity and growth were met with skepticism, grounded in lived experience. Maher's pointed interruptions acted as a reality check, cutting through talking points gone too far. In that moment, Newsom had to confront an uncomfortable truth. Spin loses its power when even well-meaning allies begin questioning it.
They've proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I asked my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership?
In an effort to defend California's reputation, the governor stepped into the spotlight, but he left as a symbol of a story unraveling in real time. It was like one of Hollywood's sharpest truth-tellers taking on a clever defendant. The discussion reached its peak when California's most visible wound, homelessness, took center stage. Maher didn't mince words. "You can talk all you want about tech growth," he said, "but people step over human misery every day." He highlighted the billions spent on housing programs like Project Home Key, which convert motels and hotels into shelters. "We keep hearing about new programs," Maher added, but the situation stays the same. Newsom responded with familiar talking points: budget deficits, mental health challenges, inflation, structural problems, and court restrictions on encampment clearings, but omitted accountability. Maher cut him off sharply. "You're the governor. Who else can solve homelessness in California?" The room fell silent, and Newsom tried to assert moral authority, but the weight of reality was undeniable. Maher challenged Newsom's claim that California prioritized compassion over the strict regulations seen in red states. "Allowing people to deteriorate on sidewalks is hardly compassionate," he said, striking a chord even with liberals who usually avoid sounding conservative on law and order. The focus then shifted to public safety, where the governor could not hide another glaring problem. Maher cited viral footage of daytime looting, businesses fleeing downtown areas, and smash and grab thefts. "This isn't perception," he argued, "it's daily life." Newsom insisted that other states face similar crime rates, but Maher countered with precision. "People's feelings matter more than statistics. They've lost faith in you." He told the story of a woman who, after 3 break-ins, moved her small business out of Los Angeles, noting that even law-abiding taxpayers are treated as part of the problem. Newsom responded with a presidential polished statement: "I'm not giving up on the state I love, and we're investing in solutions." It sounded competent and rehearsed, but it fell flat. Maher wasn't looking for politics, he was demanding reality. "Californians don't live in the picture you're painting," he pressed. "They may not see change, but they feel the tension every day."
It doesn't seem to be an organic display of protest. That means that it doesn't have a constituency among regular people. The Los Angeles protesters were fueled by very militant far-left organizations that passed out masks and frozen water bottles and other forms of protection for the protesters. Same thing in New York. This is all organized by the far left, but the people aren't coming out. And in fact, on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock in New York, everybody went home. In fact, because they were hungry. So this is kind of contrived, and the media hoped it would explode into something more.
The line triggered a huge reaction, capturing what senators, mayors, and cable commentators had long avoided saying. According to online viewers, California's dysfunction has overshadowed its progressive identity. The discussion went viral not because of partisan outrage, but because of exhaustion. People aren't offended by ideals, they are frustrated by persistent incompetence. The homelessness crisis, retail departures, and boarded up stores were evidence of a deeper problem. Promises no longer persuade Californians, they want tangible results. Maher delivered that reality check, and by the commercial break, Newsom's smile had turned formal. He retained his composure, but the damage was clear. Millions watched as even one of his ideological supporters quietly labeled the initiatives he presented as failures. This moment mattered not just for the sound bites, but for who was speaking and who was listening. Bill Maher is not a conservative pundit chasing short-term attention. He was speaking as a disillusioned insider demanding accountability. As a lifelong liberal, Maher has watched his side slip into self-delusion. It's more than late-night entertainment when someone like him dismantles a Democratic golden child on live television. It's a warning to the entire party. Gavin Newsom, one of the Democratic Party's most prominent rising stars, took the stage as a potential presidential contender, a polished West Coast liberal who seemed charismatic and confident. But Maher's cross-examination shattered that image, raising the question every Democrat fears. If you can't fix California, how can you fix America? The episode's viral aftermath made the point unmistakable. Social media overflowed with clips praised as karma by conservatives and a wake-up call by liberals. Both parties, Maher suggested, now demand independence, accountability, and sincerity rather than rehearsed political pitches. California, theoretically a progressive success story with leadership in environmental, cultural, and economic spheres, has become a living paradox, revealing a growing divide between ideals and reality. California, the most progressive state with the worst inequality, is simultaneously the wealthiest state with the highest poverty rate. Maher's critique was delivered in a measured, impersonal way, but its symbolism was striking. It exposed the widening gap between perception and reality in the contemporary Democratic message, creating ripple effects nationwide. From late-night producers to DC strategists, everyone had to confront the truth. Failure cannot be hidden by image politics, and slogans cannot measure compassion. Voters will abandon leadership that fails to deliver tangible results. Maher articulated this indictment with precision and civility, which amplified its impact. By the week's end, polls and media debated whether he had derailed Newsom's 2028 ambitions. Perhaps not, but he had revealed a core flaw in the Democratic brand, governing through virtue signaling rather than actual outcomes, and demonstrated that critique from within the party is intervention, not opposition. The Maher-Newsom exchange became a rare example of cross-party political television, memorable not for theatrics or shouting, but because honesty prevailed over artifice. It wasn't a protest against conservatism, it was a confrontation with reality. It was a clash of ideologies, and the lesson resonated with millions of viewers. If California serves as an example, it's time to rethink the approach. More than just a governor was challenged by Bill Maher's scrutiny, it sparked a nationwide conversation about accountability. Blue state politicians have long lauded California as a progressive beacon, yet Maher exposed the delusion, revealing the ethical dilemma of a state that claims compassion while fostering chaos. He voiced what millions quietly observe every day, which is why the interview went viral. California's experiment is failing rather than succeeding. On camera, Newsom's discomfort hinted at more than a tough night. It highlighted growing divisions among American liberals. The era of ambitious objectives used to justify failure seems over. Maher's measured, controlled indignation reflected a deeper issue. Internal frustration often outweighs external opposition. The impact was lasting because he spoke as a disillusioned insider demanding results, not as a partisan warrior. What began as entertainment ultimately became an indictment charm, and ambition cannot hide consequences, as Newsom learned, and the candor was refreshing to viewers.